Welcome to UFC Vegas, number 36, live before lock, as we're here to get you ready for this afternoon's UFC card, which will start here at 90 minutes from now, 2 o'clock Eastern time, with the prelims on ESPN Plus, and of course your main card on ESPN Plus as well will kick off at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We're here to answer any questions that you have in relation to today's UFC card. Of course, we are presented by Monkey Knife Fight. We'll talk a little bit about Monkey Knife Fight later on in the program. Also, we'll let you know today's show is also brought to you by our brand new sports betting podcast, Betting You. College football season is here. It is kicked off, and every Wednesday, Ben and Matt take you through each conference, the best bets on the board. You can get that podcast wherever you download your podcasts. I'm an Apple Podcast type person. I know some people like to listen to their podcasts on Spotify, so you can check that out over wherever you like to get your podcast. Of course, we're here to break this one down for you. Of course, as always, I'm joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, well, it's UFC fight week, so you know what happens. First off, I'm back. Second off, we lose a fight. So it's like I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, exactly. What's popping, people? It's good to have Jason back. Yeah, I've been up early. I went to Dunkin', got some coffee. So we're good to go, man. I don't know what your guys' morning routine or early afternoon routine is, but yeah, hitting Dunkin's a must up here in New England.
And of course, already a comment that we have is, who are we splitting money with today? And yeah, that's about the best way to put it. A 9-fight card. This is one of those fights where you just know, unless you were just going to, go with those low 7, high 6K options. The fact is you're going to split a lot with it. I'll be honest with you. I'm playing nothing but cash today.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense, right? Because of the low number of fights. I think from a betting standpoint, it's a great card to target some matchups. I definitely put together some parlays and some straight up bets, targeting some money lines, some under overs, all this and that we will get to as the show goes on. But as far as GPPs, right? If you're leaving less than, let's say, $500 on the table, you're probably going to split with a lot of people. So I would totally recommend getting different and being okay with, like, don't get enticed by spending that salary. Like, I know it's really hard. Like, even for me, like, I'm sitting there putting together a lineup, and for whatever reason, your brain wants to tell you that the more money you spend on a lineup, the better the lineup's going to perform. It's just not the case. Be different.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that, it's like I said on Thursday, I think there's 2 fights that we have to prioritize in terms of GPPs. That's Odestas Bukauskas and Khalil Roundtree. The other one being Charles Jourdain and Julian Arosa. I will tell you, when I was looking at some of the betting odds, I will tell you a parlay that I like today, which odds come out at plus 315, taking the money line on Marc-Andre Barriault, and then taking the under 2.5 round on Roundtree and Bukauskas, and the under 2.5 rounds on Arosa Jourdain. That pays off plus 315 when I was looking at that parlay a little earlier on today. Something we did not mention on the strategy show was over under on finishes. So at that point, we had 10 fights. The number was set at 4.5. I don't know, maybe we set the number at 3.5 at this point with 9 fights. Maybe we stick the number at 4.5. But I think there are some fights on this card, Pete, that I look at and say, okay, where do we see finishes? Arosa Jourdain, Bukauskas, Roundtree is one of them. I would put Paddy Pimblett and Luigi as another one. Some other ones that I think you could see stoppages in: Aspinall, Spivak, Brunson, Till, but I think it's more on the Till side of the equation in that one. I think you got to look at Jack Shore potentially, but I mean, this could be a fight card that, look, because there are some fights I do expect to go to distance. I think McCann, Kim will go the distance. I think that Morono Zawada goes the distance as well.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I would say that if the line is at 4.5, it's a tricky line. If it's at 3.5, I'm saying over. But, I look at that first fight of the night, too, and you have a guy in Dolce Lugambula who's, an early round finisher. And I think that he can be aggressive at times, but that cardio can abandon him. So I do like Marc-Andre Barriault on the opposite side to weather that storm, win some rounds, pressure him against the cage, possibly get him out of there before the end of the 15-minute bell. But I will say that, I'm looking at this card and exactly what you said. I think the Luigi Paddy Pimblett fight speaks GPPs. I think the Roundtree Bukauskas fight, probably the main event, just because there's 5 rounds to work with. But the Arosa Jourdain fight, I think, might have the most GPP implications next to the Bukauskas Roundtree fight?
I would tell you, just looking at our ownership over at Awesemo.com, of course, you're a premium member, you have access to it. I will tell you, over on the FanDuel side, I think you got to look at that Bukauskas Roundtree MVP just as a leverage play over there. Just some of the things that we're seeing. Of course, if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, our today's free premium data and tools and content is MLB player rankings and MMA fighter rankings. So be sure to check that out if you're not an Awesemo Plus member. Of course, as always, if you can give us a little thumbs up on this video, that definitely helps us out a lot as well. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe to Awesemo right here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. Of course, coming up at 2 o'clock Eastern time will be myself and Phil get you ready for tomorrow's NASCAR race. And then at 6 o'clock Eastern time, we got MLB Live Before Lock to get you ready for tonight's MLB slate. But of course, start lining up those questions in the chat. We'll get to those as we do go forward. I guess we have to start here, Pete. It's a 9-fight card. So stacking. You know, people are going to ask that question of fights to stack. I don't want to stack the main event. Yes, it is 25 minutes, but the output just isn't there for Darren Till, and that's what concerns me. I mean, I guess if I was going to lay out a potential of maybe why you would stack the main event is maybe you're hoping that Derek Brunson lands some early takedowns, and then Darren Till ends up knocking him out later on in the fight. That to me is the only way I would, that's, I guess, a thought process of stacking a main event. But are there any fights that you want to stack?
I am open to stacking today, Jason. I really am.
Whoa, breaking news here on the show.
I mean, I'm not like bullish on it, but I am open to it. And the reason is because if some underdogs don't come through, we could have losing fighters in the optimal lineup, right? Just given salary and how certain combinations work out. And let's say the high priced options end up outperforming everybody else on the card by a significant amount, then you could have a losing fighter a part of the optimal. I do think that naturally the main event, any 5-round fight does have stacking as an option, especially when the underdog is a wrestler like Derek Brunson. I think that he could end up getting a rounds or two worth of a ton of takedowns that possibly a 40, 50 point loss could, outperform some losses. Outside of that fight, right? I think the Morono-Zawada fight's interesting, but I probably wouldn't stack that. I wouldn't stack the heavyweight fight just because it's heavyweight MMA. Bukauskas Roundtree fight, it's a GPP fight. I'm expecting the loser in that to have a low score. Pimblett Vendramini's interesting, but I still probably stay away from that. The women's MMA, Kim Mccann, no. Shore and Shaolinian. Now, hear me out on this, right? Shaolinian on the Ultimate Fighter showcased fantastic wrestling, and you're talking about a guy with national level wrestling. And anytime you have a wrestler priced so low, it's worth a shot in some GPPs that possibly even in a loss he can do enough. I still expect Jack Shore to outperform him. He has an incredible ground game, incredible submissions, good ground and pound, good stand-up ability. I'm expecting Jack Shore to win this fight, but we have seen Shore look human, and we talked about it on a strategy show. Hunter Azure being able to scramble in some situations. I do think that Shore is going to be the bigger man in this matchup, but 7,100, if I was going to target somebody, I think that you could do worse than Shaolinian as in a possible upset or a stack with Jack Shore because of the pressure and the takedowns kind of coming through. Outside of that, right, like those are probably the only highlighted fights that I would even consider for stacks.
And of course, for people who are not aware of the fight that got canceled, that was what was going to be the opening matchup of the night, Jonathan Martinez and Marcelo Roja. Jonathan Martinez, weight complication issues with his weight cut, reportedly was admitted to the hospital yesterday, and the commission pulled him from the fight. So obviously there was no a chance for the UFC to put somebody else in that fight because of, the weigh-ins that already happened. So that fight's off the card. So for those who are not aware, that's a fight. And Pete, that was a fight that you talked about on Thursday, was a fight to target in terms of this one. But yeah, when it's a 9-fight card, these are the type of cards I rather play just on the cash side, build my bankroll, as opposed to, maybe I'll throw a dart here or there in a GPP, but overall you have to go with the mindset today of in a GPP, you're going to split it with a lot of people because, you're picking 6 fighters. And this is where, look, if you would Shalene at the very low ownership, if he pulls off the upset, he's going to have to be in your lineup to be optimal, because if he wins, he will be optimal.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not expecting him to win, but I do think that he can make it a very tough fight because of his wrestling, and he can scramble well. If he stands up, I think Jack Shore pieces him apart. But, I think you're going to have to get super weird this week. We talk about it every week, targeting fighters that could possibly pull the upset. And one fighter that, is volatile for sure, but can pull the upset and has a ton of experience is Julian Arosa, in my opinion. You talk about a guy with 34 professional fights, has good stand-up ability, gets cracked a lot on the feet, and I would say is somewhat chinny. He's been knocked out a lot of times in his losses. He will go for it. He will fight for it. But we've seen in the Sean Woodson fight where he can mix in some takedowns and, make it a safer fight. I did listen to an interview too, and I know Hunter was talking about it on the strategy show of how he wants to be safer in this fight and smarter. We talk about it. I mean, a dog is a dog, and he does enjoy a firefight. If he goes with a calculated game plan, he says similar to Andre Fili, and how Andre Fili fought Charles Jourdain. It's very difficult to avoid a power shot from Jourdain over 15 minutes. And if Jourdain lands that power shot, I really feel like it could be over quickly.
And when I think of Julian Arosa, I just think he's a live and die by the sword. He's going to go out there. He's not going to put himself in a boring fight. He's going to take risk in fight for that reward. And we've seen it happen. I mean, you think about, since he's come back to the UFC, he's been the underdog in every one of them outside of his last fight. Of course, didn't get the win, but prior to that, he had cashed in as a sizable underdog. You mentioned about that Sean Woodson fight. So that's something to pay attention to there. I mentioned a question in from our Slack channel from Sam. He says, Till throws no volume whatsoever, less significant strikes land per minute than Tyron Woodley. Okay to go under 20% in a 20 max?
I would say no. And the reason I say no is because it's 5 rounds, only 9 fights. I understand the volume. I would probably say that he's just a little underweight. I mean, if you want to do that, you're really relying on the underdogs coming through. I still think that Till has made some adjustments, and his volume, yes, but it's against top level competition. We have seen him fight a similar fighter in Kelvin Gastelum, and he pulled away with the victory in that fight. I know Gastelum enjoys to strike a little bit more than he wrestles nowadays, but if Brunson strikes with Till, I think we could see Brunson get knocked out early. If Brunson implements the similar game plan to the Shabazian fight, even the Holland fight, I think that it's a safer approach. Working at Sanford MMA could definitely help. I don't know, man. 20% seems so low on a 9-fight card.
Mentioned a question about the co-main event coming in over on YouTube, saying they're having a tough time of who to pick in the matchup. And when I was doing some office hours earlier in our premium Slack channel, Spivak's name came up. And, look, I much rather get to Awesemo, but you know what? If I want to play a little bit of a leverage game and get away from that massive ownership of Tom Awesemo, I don't mind getting to Spivak in a multi-entry type situation.
I think it's going to be a decision victory for Aspinall. I think it's going to be, he's going to have to be a little bit more measured in this approach. Let's call it what it is. His first 2 fights in the UFC were complete mismatches over Jake Collier and Alain Baudot. Those are showcase fights, 100%. He goes in there, is going to be aggressive. He has nothing really to worry about. He's going to go in there, get a quick paycheck, get out of there. You saw in the Arlovsky fight where he had to really make some adjustments in there. And when he decided to shoot a beautiful blast double, that's when you saw that, oh my God, he has a fantastic ground game to go ahead with his excellent striking. But that fight seemed to be a little bit more difficult than it should have been at an aging Arlovsky. I do think that Spivak has some amazing skills. Personally, I have blinders on for Tom Aspinall, so I will not be rostering Sergey Spivak. You might want to ask Jason that question. So perhaps Jason feels more strongly about Spivak than I do. I think Spivak's a very good heavyweight, right? I mean, I don't know. I just really like Aspinall today, just from a betting standpoint, not from a DFS standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand why you get the Spivak in this situation. I mean, the one I would say the concern I potentially have with Aspinall is if this fight gets to the 3rd round. But as you said on Thursday's strategy show, which is a great point, how many heavyweights have 3-round cardio outside of Cain Velasquez? There's not many of those. I mean, I much rather get a Tom Aspinall in that situation. But I understand why someone would want to go to the Sergey Spivak route. Of course, fantasy football season is here. You got to take advantage of the Awesemo fantasy football draft kick. which is available now for season long and best ball leagues. The same projections, tools, analysis that we use for NFL DFS goes into this package, which includes our draft wingman, best ball rankings, and stacking guide, trade value chart, and so much more. This is something I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of today as I've got my fantasy draft tonight. And also with this offer we have going on, you'll receive up to $35 credit for underdog and FFPC leagues. You can get this package for 33% off when you use the promo code WR at checkout. That's $9.95 for everything we have to offer for season long and best ball. So be sure to check out that. Yeah, that draft wingman definitely has helped me out a lot as well. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are doing their fantasy football drafts this weekend as well. Next question we have from Brian. He says, is there a way to pick a fighter who's expecting to lose? What kind of things should you look for from that fighter? And obviously that goes into the stacking situation.
Yeah. So, I do think that we could have a losing fighter. We talked about it a little bit. I'll kind of touch on it again. You need that losing fighter to have either high volume, so insane striking totals, or you need to have them with a wrestling background where they can accrue easy points, 5 points here, 5 points here. That stuff really adds up. Back in the day when we had advances and all that, I loved that. Like I personally love that. It was so easy to target these underdogs. But you need to look at the underdogs with some great wrestling credentials. Derek Brunson. You could look at Benjamini's side because of his experience, but you could also look at a guy like Shalinian, super, super, super cheap, and Julian Arosa.
Yeah, definitely. That's great information there. Next up, Matt says, who's more likely to win, Roundtree or Brunson?
It's a damn good question.
I mean, look, Modestus Roundtree is like a 50-50 fight for me. It's even though I thought Modestus won his last fight, the decision didn't go his way. It's a striking matchup. That's what these two guys are going to do. Roundtree back at Syndicate MMA after spending some time over in Thailand. What do we kind of see out of him? I think it's one of these situations where I think when it comes to both guys, I don't know how much you trust them, but it is a fight I believe you have to prioritize because I don't think this thing's going 15 minutes. I think someone's getting knocked out at some point.
Yeah, man. Roundtree's volume sometimes is just like, and if you look at Modestus, right, in his past fight against Mikhail Olashechuk, he only landed like 29% of them, but he threw 62 strikes in round 1, 56 in round 2, 49 in round 3. We look at Khalil Roundtree sometimes in his previous fight against Marcin Prachnio, who, in my opinion, he should have walked right through 38, 48, 62. Low volume, but he packs a punch. So I do wonder if he could just get pieced apart from the outside by Modestus. It's a weird fight, man. I don't really know. I would say Roundtree probably had. I have no answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, the question for me with Derek Brunson is can he get the takedowns? If he gets the takedowns, I think he's got a path there, but I think Darren Till should win that matchup. Next up, we got asked about the best cash plays under 8,000. I think David Zawada is one that kind of, maybe some, I don't think there's any safe place by instance. I mean, Roundtree is 7,700. And Julian Arosa probably have the highest upside in terms of under 8,000 plays. But I mean, it's fights that, most, obviously in the Arosa situation, you expect Jourdain to get the win there, but Arosa has been, played the spoiler here a couple of times since coming back to the UFC. But I think David Zawada is kind of the guy that might look to with the most confidence.
Yeah, I would probably say that. I mean, you have to include Molly Mccann. I know I said under 8,000, but right at 8,000, Molly Mccann, in my opinion, it's a fight where she's fought better competition. Ji Yeon Kim, yes, she has a pretty big reach advantage in this matchup. I just don't know how she really is as a complete MMA fighter. She really overextends on a lot of her straight punches, and anytime she overextends, I do think that leaves her susceptible to getting doubled or pressed against the cage. She doesn't seem to be the best in the clinch, and I do think that's where even a shorter fighter who's very aggressive with a good pace, I think Molly Mccann can press her against the cage. I understand that Molly McCann's on back-to-back losses. Tyler Santos, Lara Procopio. In my opinion, those two fighters are significantly better than Ji Yeon Kim, and I do think that Molly McCann just will push a pace. At 8,000, she's an underdog that I really like today. Slight underdog, but under 8,000, I would probably, say that you just hope for the best in Derek Brunson, that he can avoid a big shot, because Till doesn't throw so much, avoid a big shot, and then he can take him down.
Next up, I got asked about Kim being the biggest punt play besides Spivak. I don't think there's really outside of Sholane. I think he's the only punt play today.
Yeah.
Just because you only have 9 fights. So ownership is not, it's not going to be a situation where, I always talk about finding those fighters that are underneath 20% ownership. That's just not the case this week.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, you have to get super different this week. I think north of $500 left on the table is the way to go for GPPs for sure.
Yeah. Barriot or Bukakis GPP, I'd feel much safer with Barriot, but Bukakis I think's got the higher ceiling.
I do think that Bukakis, it's a volatile matchup, but for me, I think Andre Barriot, he's like one of the fighters I'm pretty bullish on. He was a parlay piece for me. I like him. I just think, I don't really know if I think that Dolce Lunkenbuehler is any good.
Cash games lock, I think it's Barriot.
Yeah, I like Barriot today, guys. I really do. I think that Barriot and, I think Molly McCann, that's going to be a sweat. I do think it's going to be a sweat, but I think that she's a fighter that can give you some awesome flexibility for salary.
For FanDuel GPPs, who do you prefer at captain, Bukakis or Pimblett? I would be more comfortable going Patty Pimblett than I would Modestas Bukakis, but Modestas obviously could get a first round finish with some bonus points there, but I'd be a little more comfortable going the Patty side.
Yeah, I would have to say that I feel more confident with Patty Pimblett, and I understand a lot of people do like Luigi Vendramini. He's fought at higher weight classes. He does have a strong ground game. I just think the pace, and you hear me say about pace is everything, because you could be the most talented fighter in the world. If you don't have cardio to keep up with people, you're just going to be a shell of yourself, and you're going to be there, and inactivity will not win you a fight. So I do think that pace is something different, and I think Patty Pimblett's pace is why I feel pretty confident with him in the matchup.
Next up, Andrew asked about thoughts on Jake Shore as a FanDuel MVP. Here's the downside to it. You'd be in the majority because everyone's looking at Jack Shore as the MVP there. I think the only concern is unable to get that stoppage to get some bonus points.
Yeah, I think it's going to go the distance, despite what people think is a vast skill gap between the two. I think that, I think Shalinian can make this a very difficult fight for him.
Yeah, of course, if you do have any questions, be sure to line those up in YouTube, also in our premium Slack channel as well, as we'll get to all of those questions throughout the show as we're here for another 35 minutes or so, as, of course, the fights start 2 o'clock Eastern time, of course, on ESPN Plus main card, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And, of course, you just tuned in. We did lose one fight yesterday as Jonathan Martinez was pulled from the card. Charles, appreciate you in the super chat. Best captain for a small field on DraftKings.
Captain on DraftKings. Let's see. Let me pull that up.
Just make sure what fights are not included in that one.
Well, they start at 2:15, so I would imagine 1, 2, 3, 4.
I guess there's a Barrio Dolce fight listed.
Yeah, it's the Barrio Dolce fight. That's the only one left out of it. Okay.
At captain. Could Molly McCann be the interesting captain play?
I think so. Because if she stays on the outside, she's the style difference and the frames are really going to force her hand of how she can go about in this fight, right? Like if she stays in a striking match, she'll probably get picked apart from the outside. She has to make this ugly and she has to grind and she has to push her against the cage and try to implement takedowns. Tyler Santos, in my opinion, so much better than Jeon Kim. Laura Procopio, so much better. And I think that she had good moments in both of those fights. And I do think that Jeon Kim just is going to get smoked here.
Of course, she does have a major reach advantage in that matchup. That's going to be something that Molly McCann is going to have to overcome there. Next up, we've got 3 fighters with an option. So we're looking at Luigi, Zawada, or Dalcha. I'd prefer to go Zawada out of those 3.
I crossed Dalcha off, in my opinion, and that's just me personally today. Zawada or Luigi. A lot of people seem to like Luigi this week, man. Like they think that the new guy coming from Europe is extremely overrated, and they think that Pimblett's just going to get smoked because Luigi is a talented grappler and has showcased some good striking. But if you really put his wins under a microscope, outside of his UFC experience, he's fought some low-level competition.
Here's the thing I will say about the situation with Paddy Pimblett. This is a guy who took his time to get to the UFC. He made the decision that he was not going to rush himself. You know, there's a lot of fighters who they just want to get to the UFC and they get there too quickly. And Luigi admitted that this week. He said, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be here. And I've had to, you know, he's had to develop his skills. I also think that the UFC understands they might have something here in Paddy Pimblett from a promotional aspect. So I believe that they believe this is a showcase fight here for Paddy Pimblett. You know, so the UFC is not going to, when they have someone that they believe has a chance to be a star, and particularly someone who could be a star for them internationally.
It's huge.
They're going to put them in what is a showcase fight. He is the A side of this fight, you know, but obviously there's potential size issues that could be a concern later on the fight goes. But to me, I like Paddy Pimblett in this situation.
Now, what's your response to people that say, you know, his getting into the UFC was less of his decision and more on the UFC's decision because they didn't think that he was ready? I think that can also be, you know, kind of boxing.
No, they offered him 2 contracts.
Okay, then. Well,
one in 2016 and one in 2018. He turned down both times because he felt he wasn't ready, and he was also trying to add on size. Because
then I like it then.
Yeah, this is the reality of the situation. Is when you get to the UFC and you're 2-3 fights and they get rid of you, it's harder to get back in than it was to get there.
100%.
And so sometimes, as someone who's been in this game for a long time, I think there are managers out there, they rush their fighters to the UFC because of the pay.
Well,
and their fighters aren't ready.
It's an opportunity, but we see a lot of fighters in the New England scene get there fast and they get cycled out very quickly. And it's a shame because whether it's on the Contender Series or whatnot, yes, it's an opportunity knocking at the door, but you also want to stay. Like, it's a matter of getting to the UFC, but it's more impressive if you can stay there and, you know, be there when you can actually compete at the high level. I think I would agree with you 100%.
Well, I mean, the perfect example of this is, what's his name? He only had 1 fight. He quit on the stool.
Oh, what's his name? The Roshkov.
Roshkov, yeah. So his management had been pushing to get in the UFC since he was like 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
And we see how that went. Like, there's times where I see fighters get on the Contender Series and only have 3 pro fights. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the best decision.
100%. And I know, like, in comparison to other sports, people will, like, we have Sean in the chat saying, what pay? That pay? The pay step up from regional to UFC is significant. It really is. It's super significant. Like, and, you know, I fought on Bellator, and that's a significant jump from regional. It's very hard for fighters to turn down certain fights when you're getting quadruple or even 10 times amount what you would on the regional scene.
This is a reality, and you know this very well. If you are, and this is pre-COVID, if you are not a ticket seller on the regional scene, it is extremely tough to make money on the regional scene. Extremely tough.
Yeah, and I don't want to hear people say, "Oh, sponsor." You make trash from sponsorships.
There's a reason you'll see about 50 sponsor logos.
100%, because what are you getting? I don't want to start throwing numbers out there because then people really start realizing how underpaid local fighters are. But it's
you don't got to tell me. I know.
It's tough. It's very tough. And that's why, like, for me, I think that this is going to be a competitive fight. I don't think it's an easy fight for Paddy Pimblett, to kind of circle back. I don't think it's an easy fight for him. I think it's a good fight for him to showcase his skills. And if he goes in there and dominates a BJJ black belt and puts him in bad positions or TKOs him or subs him and make him look like he doesn't belong there, what are we going to say now? We're going to say, wow, this kid's legit.
Yeah, he is someone to pay attention to there. Of course, we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Monkey Knife Fight, you are in charge. Head to monkeyknifefight.com. And when you sign up with that promo code Awesemo, get instant first match deposit of up to $100. When it comes to the main event in terms of total strikes landed, that number has not changed, Pete, since Wednesday. Brunson 87.5, Till 57.5. I mean, look, Darren Till is not a volume puncher. Brunson, I still think the Brunson number is a little high if this thing stays on the feet.
I would agree. I think it's high. I think it's too high, and I would hit less on that. The Till one's interesting because it's a matter of if Brunson can absorb those shots and continue moving forward, or if he just closes that gap immediately and forces Till to defend takedowns.
Yeah. And then the other one, we did see a slight change when numbers went up a little bit of Tom Aspinall, 61.5 total strikes landed. Sergey Spivak, 41.5. If this thing goes 15 minutes, it's kind of a double more situation for me, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I'll probably say that. I would agree with you.
Yeah. Next up, let's go over to the Slack chat here for a question here from John. He says, which high-priced fighter is the right one to start a DK cash lineup with? Shore, Aspinall, or Till?
Cash, he said?
Yeah, he said cash.
I'd go Jack Shore. Just because I think it's going to be a win. I don't think it's going to be an easy fight. I think that he's so good, but I think that I could project his win more than others.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of cash, I would probably rank them Shore, Till, Aspinall.
Agreed.
It's just kind of the concern with Aspinall about being a 3-round fight, and and if there's not a lot of takedowns, control times, things along those lines, about just not ultimately getting the score that you hope for. Jourdain over Till. This comes in from Ryan. I would rather go Jourdain because I believe the ceiling is higher.
I think a finish is more likely. Yeah. And the ceiling is higher.
Will you stack the main event in GPP or get different elsewhere on FanDuel? I would. FanDuel, that's an interesting one. Because Darren Till could stop some takedowns. That's where Darren Till becomes an interesting play over in FanDuel. Yes, he's $21, but he's going to have to stop takedowns. He is. Derek Brunson will go for takedowns.
It's a matter of can he. I don't know. I just don't like how the pricing is over on FanDuel, to be honest, when it comes to stacking.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing my general thought process when I'm developing lineups on FanDuel is I'm looking at who is going to have to stop takedowns. That's like one of the first things I look to, because even in a loss, you can have a fighter rack up a ton of points just because they defend so many takedown attempts. I mean, you remember when John Dotson fought, I want to say, did he fight Marab?
Yeah, and he stopped.
And he stopped like 16, 17 takedowns. He lost, but he was optimal because he racked up so many points because of takedown defenses.
Agreed. Yep.
So that's always something to pay attention to when it comes to interns over there. Let's see here. Till or Moreno for a DraftKings GPP? I'd rather go Till.
Agreed. Till.
Let's see here. Roundtree or Dolce? I will go Roundtree.
Roundtree.
Till or Jourdain? I missed that one before. I do like Jourdain in that one. Andrew says Till can't score good outside of a first round KO. Even if he KOs Brunson in the third round, he still scores like 70 points. It's a fair thing to bring up and because he's just not a volume puncher.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I think that he can get it done. Anytime a low volume fighter gets it done, though, you're looking at possibly questionable totals. And that's why I'm okay with getting away from Till in some of my lineups. I think that around a quarter to a third of lineups makes a lot of sense in a 20 max. We talk about a decision win over Gastelum in a 3-round bout, 51 points. We can kind of project if it did go 5 rounds somehow, maybe he'd be in the 80, maybe 90 point range. 90's kind of pushing it if it goes the distance. But 5-round decision over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Think about this: 56 points. That is pretty bad.
Yeah. He gifted a decision win there. Next up, Hunter says, Jason, for me, I believe Julian, only that he has chosen to employ the correct game plan and coming off a quick KO loss too. And for me, it's his fight to lose all day. I would not say it's his fight to lose all day. There's a reason Charles Jourdain is the favorite in this one. The only kind of concern I maybe have a little bit of Charles Jourdain is that he's just very patient / picky in terms of when he goes for it.
Yeah, I think from an explosive and dangerous standpoint, I think Charles Jourdain has the edge. Now I understand what Hunter's saying, and that's kind of where when I was making my parlay today, and I almost put Jourdain in there kind of like automatically, and I was like, you know what? That feels like that fight can be a little tricky because Julian Arosa, I did listen to an interview, talked about he wants to be smart this fight, implement the right game plan, search for a Darce choke, just take him down because he thinks that he can, really expose him on the mat. And he did do that in the Woodson fight, right? Like he absorbed some shots, but I mean, at one point, all this damage is going to catch up to you, and it's hard to avoid punches in a fight. And I do think that if Jourdain touches him, it could be a quick stoppage.
Here's the thing I will also mention about when you watch fighter interviews, and this comes from someone who has interviewed fighters for a decade. They will not tell you the truth. They're not going to give you. They're not going to give you their game plan. I'm just telling you that right now.
Even if it is their game plan, right? How many people in today's MMA really stick to the game plan? It's very difficult to do. You would kind of project that a veteran, a guy with 34 fights like Julian Arosa, could pull off following a game plan more than a green fighter. But I'll tell you that fights tend to go completely different than how you even imagine them. Like I could sit there. I visualize all the time before all my fights. I visualize constantly. And I don't think there's been one fight that really went how I thought it was going to go.
The one thing I'll relate this to, I was watching Game Day this morning, and they were talking about Nebraska. And they were talking about their game last week, where basically Nebraska had this game plan, but Illinois defensively just took them out of that game plan immediately just based on how they were covering them. And you can relate that to the fight game where, you have this game plan of like, because of something you have seen on film where you're like, man, I know this combination is going to be there. Or if I want to get a takedown, I take him this way. And all of a sudden they come out. Like think of Khalil Roundtree versus Eric Anders a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Khalil Roundtree came out as a completely different fighter. And so, Anders' team, they had to switch game plans immediately. That's why, I think that if you ask fighters and you said, is your game plan read and react? I feel like most guys would say yes.
100%. It is. I'll tell you. What? I've never said I'm going to take somebody down, but when I felt my opponent in the clinch one fight and I said, man, this guy's weak. And I had underhooks. I had an under over. I said, okay, let's go. But I know the fight you're talking about. yeah, exactly. But, we're really looking at Julian Arosa, but also Charles Jourdain looks at his fights as well and will make adjustments. That's why MMA is very, very difficult because you have two guys that are trying to, it's chess. They're trying to, form a game plan, but also the other ones are working on their weaknesses. So I think it's a GPP fight. For me, for betting, I just wouldn't touch it. I think that Arosa is an interesting underdog for sure. I would probably target the under 2.5 if I wanted to be a little safer. For GPPs, though, to me, it's pretty similar to the Modestas Bukauskas Khalil Roundtree fight.
I'll give people a little insight. The night before that fight, me and Peter together, Pete's laying out the game plan to me. Mm-hmm. Let's just say, hey, I think I'm stronger than him, so I'm going to take him down. Never came into the combination. And I remember sitting on press row He goes for the takedown, and Garrett Davies is sitting next to me. I looked and go, yeah, that was not a part of the game plan he told me.
No, and it wasn't. And Hunter, he does have some takedown defense. It's improved from fight to fight. I think that, kind of holding that Andre Fili fight above his head and other fights, it looks like he doesn't have any. But in that Marcelo Rojo fight, you did see him get to head and front headlock position a lot. And I do think that front headlock position, whenever you can sprawl on your opponent or get them in that vulnerable state, you are showcasing better hips. And I did think that he had somewhat improved takedown defense in his past fight.
Andrew, I will tell you, in terms of Modestas Bukauskas as a FanDuel MVP, what I do like about that is what we're seeing ownership wise, kind of getting away from the Jack Shore ownership, which someone else had asked about Jack Shore on FanDuel, is if he's worth it, if he has the money left over. And of course, Jack Shore, the most expensive fighter over on FanDuel at $23. I guess my question would be, is someone like Marc-Andre Barrios in your lineup? Is someone like a Charles Jourdain in your lineup? I would rather get to Jourdain than Shore personally, just because of, I believe the stoppage is a higher probability from Jack Shore, from Charles Jourdain.
Yeah, I think that a stoppage is happening in that fight. I'm leaning in Jourdain's favor, but it's like a 60-40 for me. And that's how I view it. I mean, I know Rojo's not a grappler, but I also would say that Julian Arosa really isn't either. Like, he's a banger, and he just happens to have good wrestling, solid wrestling, good takedowns, and some sneaky jiu-jitsu. But we'll see. I'm treating that fight like it's a coin flip, and I'm treating Modestas Bukauskas fight like it's a coin flip as well.
Next up, Charles, appreciate you, says, not a DFS question, but I feel like we have 2 seconds. What's the best change the UFC could make to improve the promotion? Well, there's 2
open
things.
Scoring system. But
I don't think open scoring is the answer.
I would love it. I think it, for me personally, as a fighter, right? I'm very critical, and for my fighters, like, if it's a close round, I automatically tell them, all right, let's act like we lost. Let's act like we lost that, right? I think if we really saw it on the screen, Pete lost that round, and maybe it's a 10-8. I think it can really give you the motivation, and also just like, bro, I got to step it up. I'm about to lose this fight.
Look, this is, I've talked privately with fighters about that question. I feel like it's 50-50. Some like it, some don't like it. I don't think open scoring will come into major organizations. First off, I don't think the UFC would do it, because here's an example of why I don't think you'll see promotions that want open scoring, Pete. It takes away the drama.
That's true.
From a TV, as a fighter, I completely understand. You would love to know what the score is. I completely get it. But I think from like a UFC, a Bellator type situation, I don't think those promotions will say, let's have open scoring. I think the way you could improve this sport, I think it's kind of twofold. Part of it is we got to get better people working fights. We got to get better judges. We've got to get better referees. Especially more on the judging aspect. We got to have judges who understand this game, that understand the stand-up aspect of the game, that understand the ground aspect, that truly understand what fighters are doing when they're on the mat. Are they like the ones that are trying to advance position? Do they understand exactly what they're doing? I think the other side of it is pay fighters more money.
Yeah, I think fighter pay needs to get increased significantly.
Yeah, I mean that to me is where you could really change everything. Next up, Chad goes Spivak or Brunson for cash. I have 7,400 for the final spot.
I'd go Brunson. I just think that I like Aspinall too much in that matchup, and it's heavyweight MMA. I think that Brunson, he's a wrestler, and in cash, if you're asking me to pick between those two, it's definitely Brunson.
FanDuel captain question: Charles Jourdain or Marc-Andre Barrios?
It depends on how strongly you feel about Charles Jourdain. I view it as a 50-50 fight, but he's going to need to stop some takedowns. Julian Arosa clearly is going to try to mix that in. I think that he has high upside as far as stoppage and as far as takedowns defended, possibly. So I might lean in Jourdain's favor and say that he has more upside over than Barrio in on FanDuel.
Want to let you know about a promo we got going on over at Awesemo.com that does in today. That is for our college football tailgate promo. Of course, college football week 1 has kicked off, and we've launched our inaugural college football DFS package. Use promo code tailgate to get $10 off your first week of Also Plus college football, which includes player projections, ownership projections, matchup data, and so much more. You can activate this promo right now. This offer is good through today, so you got to take advantage of that offer. Be sure to use that promo code tailgate to get $10 off your first week of Also Plus college football. Next up, Blackbird over in our Slack channel says FanDuel Cash, Jourdain, Dolce, or Till and Arosa.
Till and Arosa.
Yeah, I do not want to go the Dolce route. Definitely a route.
Not me
Definitely
either.
a route that I don't want to go. Safer pick, Jourdain, Aspinall, or Barrio?
I will say Aspinall, Barrio, then Jourdain. That's how I'd rank them.
Favorite GPP captain, Shore or Bukakis? I would go Jack Shore just because of.
Agreed.
Bukakis Roundtree is this week's boom bust fight.
100%.
You know, it's one of those fights that the winner is going to be optimal, and the loser may only get you 10, 15 points.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one.
There seems to be more times than not. Every week, there's one fight you can look at and say, this is the boom bust fight of the night. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's Bukakis, a Roundtree, and maybe a Rosa Jourdain is the other one that you would put in that category.
Agreed. Now, okay, let me ask you, and let's kind of like have our listeners think about this. Who are we not talking about? I love asking that question. Who are we not talking about? That's kind of like, flying under the radar. I think that maybe the Morono-Zawada fight's something we're really not hitting on enough. Would you agree with me on that?
I think there's 2 names that stick out to me.
All right, let's hear it.
Ji-Young Kim against Molly Mccann.
Oh, yeah.
10-inch reach advantage in that one. So if she can stop the takedowns, I mean, I think that every question I've gotten this week in relation to DFS has been all about Molly Mccann. It's not been about the other side. And I think Dolce is probably the other fighter. And I mean, you've talked about how he's a guy that you don't want today, but he's probably another guy that you have to look at in terms of, do you want to go that route? I don't want to go that route, but I think those are 2 names that stick out to me.
Yeah. Okay. So for Ji-Young Kim, right, it's the volume, and the volume's not at Molly Mccann's level, slightly under it, but they both get hit a ton. And I do think that possibly the reach advantage could lead to more landed strikes. I just look at Ji-Young Kim's fights, man. I'm not really impressed. And, if she even wins, right, she's scored 68, 57. She scored 113 because she got a stoppage over Kasem. I don't view her stopping Molly Mccann. So let's think that she gets a decision win. Does she score north of 75 points? I don't really see it happening. I'd much rather target somebody else, like, the Morono-Zawada fight that could possibly have GPP implications. You mentioned Lugan Bula. Man, I don't want anything to do with Lugan Bula today. I really don't.
Pedro, appreciate you in the super chat. He says, I'm super heavy on David Zawada. Thoughts?
I think that, me personally, I like David Zawada. I think that he is a big guy. He's training an American top team. I think that his cardio, No, I want to say he has bad cardio. It's his wrestling defense that has really abandoned him in some certain fights. I just think that if Morono mixes things up, it could be a difficult fight, but his scrambling ability is pretty good. We've seen Morono on the bottom a lot get, pounded on. I do still worry about Morono's durability. He has been hurt a lot within the cage. And, a lot of people think that Morono is going to step in here on short notice and just walk right through David Zawada. I think that you could be somewhat surprised.
Appreciate everyone that's in here on a Saturday afternoon watching MMA Live Before Lock right here on Awesemo.com. If you do us a favor, can you hit those thumbs up? Love to get over 100 likes before we get out of here. In about 10 minutes from now, of course, lock time is at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, I'm coming up here today on Awesemo. We got the NASCAR strategy show with myself and Phil. That'll be at 2 o'clock each time, then at 6 o'clock each time. We got MLB Live Before Lock with Greg and Terry. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you always know when we got a new video live here on the channel, whether it's a live video or some of our video on demand stuff that you can check out. So be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. Thomas says, no one talking about the downside of the small cage for Till.
Thomas, I love the comment. I really do. I do love the comment. And for me, right, I have friends of mine that are strikers, a lot of friends, and they're like, I'd never fight in a small cage. What that does is it really takes away from a striker's advantage and, forces the action and, increases the likelihood of, clinching and wrestling, engagements. But that could definitely work in Brunson's favor. It's a great comment. I do love it. What's your thoughts on the smaller cage? I mean, because let's be honest, the Apex cage is not like a regional promotion small cage. That small cage for the UFC is still pretty damn big.
But it is a notable difference in terms of the big 30-footer as opposed to a 25-footer. I mean, look, overall, I think it's an advantage for the grapplers because especially if you know someone who has the ability to cut off their opponent and does it well, you can really, force them behind that black line. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, when you're watching the UFC show today, there's a black line. And if the wrestler can get the striker behind that black line, it's going to allow them to get the fight up against the fence, potentially get the takedown there. But I think we have also seen what it does do is it forces more action where the bigger cage can kind of run around a lot, right. and limit opportunities for your opponent.
100%. I love it. I love the question. Obviously with lighter guys and smaller guys, you feel like they still have a lot of room to move about that cage. With heavier guys, like you talk about heavyweight MMA, we could be looking at a slugfest between Aspinall and Sergey Spivak.
Next up, let's see here. We've got Matt saying thoughts on taking a flyer on Shailene in a single entry or 3 max, get unique line construction. Yeah, that's a great way to get unique. It's tough to get unique on a 9-fight card, but that definitely is a way to get unique today. Yeah,
if you want to just view this card as names and opportunity and percentages and variance, then you need to target Shailene in hopes that his wrestling and his national level of wrestling can really possibly spoil Jack Shore in there and defeat him for the first time in his professional career.
Duncan says, gotta love a heavyweight wearing mayonnaise on his first tweet to see on a Saturday. So apparently he saw my Twitter as I retweeted College Game Day this morning. Just go to my Twitter handle, Pete. There's a dude who put it, he had like literally like a Costco Sam's Club type gallon of mayonnaise, picks the bottle up, pours it over his head.
Oh my God.
Mayonnaise comes on his head, starts rubbing his face, and then rubs it all over his stomach and his chest.
May I ask why? Why?
College Game Day?
What the hell? What's with the mayonnaise?
Literally, my response was, how hammered do you got to be at 9:30 in the morning to do this?
I got to be freaking hammered because mayonnaise is gross first, and you're going to put that on your body. You must smell terrible after that. Oh my God, I'm about to gag on stream right now.
Yeah, man, dude, it was, oh yeah. The best part about College Game Day is just the signs you see. Some of the signs are just absolutely hilarious. I know you're not a big college football guy because, me and Tyler here in the South, college football is king. I know anytime I travel up north during college football season, it's not a guarantee I walk into a bar and they've got the college games on.
I don't know anything about it. I've never watched a college game in my life. I'm about this punch face life as we're about to brand on a t-shirt.
I mean, look, man, I'm telling you, we just got to get you to a college game. And I think that'll completely change your opinion. It's a totally different experience. And you got to go to a college game on a college campus.
Oh my God. I just see Tyler put up the guy with the mayonnaise. That is the most disgusting thing I think I've ever seen. Oh my goodness. We have Hunter asking about Khalil Roundtree. Yeah, we talked about Khalil. I think fight to fight, you don't know which Khalil is going to show up, right? I do think that he's back at Syndicate. So I think that's interesting, having camps over in Thailand that are really focused around your stand-up, whereas at Syndicate, it's going to be more of an MMA approach. It's just I tell you what, I don't know. I don't know. I do favor Roundtree in the matchup, but it's a 50-50 fight for me.
Yeah, I mean, and also I'll say this because there's kind of a question related to this is like, to me, this is the type of card where I think you play a lot of cash to try to build your bankroll up for, whether you want to play, setting up your bankroll for football season and MLB slates and things along those lines. That's something that I think I will use today in terms of developing my lineups, just because in these big GPPs, it's going to be chop city. That's got to be the mentality when you're playing these big GPPs is it's going to be chop city.
But I'm going to look at the camera right now. We got 300 people checking us out. Hit that like button for us. Get us over 100 likes. And I want you to end up taking down the tournament by yourself. No chopping. I want no chopping. So in order for that to happen, you guys got to get unique today. I want to see these screenshots. I want to see you guys win. I want to see these parlays coming through for you. Hunter, I hope the Arosa bets come through for you. I mean, I do have plenty of Arosa in my GPP lineups. I will tell you that, admittedly. And when I was creating my parlays, I took Jourdain off because I am worried about it. But it's clearly a 50-50 fight, in my opinion.
I feel like to truly separate yourself from the field, you got to have, I think, 3 underdog fighters. And Cholane may be one of them. To just totally make yourself unique. Just because of, I think a popular build will be along the lines of a Barrios, a Jourdain, a Mccann, a Pimblett, and probably a Till. Somewhere in kind of that equation.
Jason, let me ask you, right? I'm going to ask you one ownership question. What's Vendramini looking like?
Under 25%.
Based on everything I've heard this week, I feel like that should be more than 25%. Everybody's targeting him. Everybody's doubting Pimblett. And what do we got?
Matt goes, Pete, take a spoonful of mayo if we get over 200 likes.
Hell no, Matt. I am not taking mayo. Is gross. If you get grinders or whatever you guys call them, I call them grinders up here. And you get mayo, I don't want mayo. I get it with oil.
Tyler might stick around for a while for us to get 200 likes if you see you get a spoonful of mayo.
Hell no. I tell you right now, I ain't doing it. So y'all can hit y'all can get us at 200. I'll be out. I ain't taking no mayonnaise. You guys gonna make me swear on stream right now. So Ricky's saying, what the hell is a grinder? What do you call for stuff? You call a sub? Up here in New England, we call it a grinder.
I'm familiar with the term grinder.
Okay, yeah. What the hell are you talking about?
I get, but I'm in the restaurant industry, so those are things I'm kind of aware of.
Can I get a sandwich?
What do you call it? What do you call soda pop?
No, I don't know.
Is that a northern thing?
No. I think that's a Tyler thing. I think Tyler calls it pop, and I don't know. But anyways, you guys call it subs. We call it grinders up here. I hear hoagies. I don't know. But anyways.
Yeah. But wish everyone luck here today on your lineups. It's going to be, I saw someone said they're leaving $2,400 left on the table in DK. Yeah, that'll help you get unique. You can leave that much on the table.
I'm leaving like over 1,000 for a lot of lineups just because I know anything close to, 500 left over is just going to be split city.
Yeah, and that's what I'm expecting here today. But I appreciate everyone that's been tuned in here. Of course, so we have no UFC next week. One of the rare weeks of no UFC cards. Of course, next UFC card will be here in 2 weeks, September the 18th. That's also an afternoon card, as I'll be there for Live Before Lock as well. So we look forward to chatting with you then. Of course, come up here in about 30 minutes from now. We got NASCAR Strategy Show, myself and Phil. So be sure to stay tuned here to Awesemo all day long. So good luck today with everybody with your UFC lineups. And we will talk to you in 2 weeks on the MMA Strategy Show. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.